Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April meeting for the Open Space Greenways Committee. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is the approval of the minutes for the March meeting. Could I have a motion to approve?
I have an adjustment to be made to it. Under BPAC, we're sponsoring a bike skill class through the Recreation Department to be held at the Public Safety Department for ages 10 and above. And for those under 11, we recommend that a parent be with them. The skill classes will take place the last 3 weeks of the month of May, and we are looking at sometime during the coming months to pass out some bike lights, wristbands, and other information.
Okay.
So you want the minutes to show that parents should accompany people
Under 11 years old. Yes. And that the lights and wristbands and information will be passed out at a later date, not at the Ride Your Bike to School Day, which will be May 8th.
You want that on the March meeting minutes?
On the March meeting, yes.
Okay, fine. Are there any other changes or additions? If not, entertain a motion to approve as amended.
I make a motion to amend the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any additions or changes to the agenda as such? If not, we'll move right along. Next item on the agenda are the reports. Township, Carl Pletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 5 things for the commission. First of all, I would note that the Township Board at the last meeting approved the appointment of Dan Jaster to replace the position that was vacated by the resignation of Woody Clark. Welcome aboard, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second item is that the budget that was presented by this commission to the Township Board was unanimously approved. The third thing is on a consent agenda, the Township Board approved the reappointment of Cliff St. Pierre as the chair of this commission for another term that is from April 1, 2019 through March 31, 2020. Number 4, the environmental report on the Ferry Trail Connector, that is the former Tittle property, is expected to be received this week or the beginning of early next week. We're expecting a clean environmental report on that. And in light of that, item number 5, the township will be awarding a contract for trail construction at the next board meeting, which is on April 8, 2019. And the construction will then be able to commence 30 to 45 days after the closing. There were 2 bids that were made, and the township will, I expect, be accepting the lowest bid, which is approximately $18,500 for the construction of the new trail to connect the ferry property through the Tittle property to Gage Road. And that concludes my report. I'm sorry, the second was that the Township Board approved unanimously the budget that was proposed by this commission.
Kyle DeBassett is absent tonight, as is Pam Frusci, so we'll dispense with the beautification, recreation, and the Grosse Ile School. and we'll proceed with the BPAC. Any new items for this month?
Yes, we do. We had a meeting, March 21st. We met with Les Pfeiffer with the maintenance, and we're talking about doing some staining on the three bridges. We're also talking about replacing the Meridian Bridge, which is going to cost approximately the most $75,000. And everybody's saying that's a lot of money, but the last bridge is between 29 and 30 years old. BPAC is going to meet with, in the month of April, we're going to have a group come in from folks on the Groseal Parkway in the neighborhoods to talk about connecting Meridian to the Groseal Wayne County Bridge, Free Bridge. Also, we got a Ride Your Bike to School Day, May 8th. We've got quite a few things going on.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you. And now, there's one item that I completely skipped over, and that's Groseal Nature Land Conservancy. Bert, please forgive me.
Saving the best for last there, Cliff. That's fine. So the Conservancy has been busy with some early spring programs, and just to let people know, we've got a lot of things coming up. So this Saturday at 1 p.m. at the Gibraltar Bay Unit of the Refuge on East River, we're going to have our naturalist Sabrina Mastroianni speak on birding made simple. So this is everyone's opportunity to learn a little bit about how to bird watch, and Sabrina is an excellent presenter. She has already made a few days of presentations at the Meridian Elementary School, and she'll be at Park Lane in May as part of a program that's a partnership between Groseal Township Schools, the Groseal Nature Land Conservancy, and Lake Erie Metro Park, where she works. And then also coming up on April 28th, on Sunday, is our Earth Day celebration, and that will be from 2 to 5 p.m. at Centennial Farm. So that'll be a family-friendly day with live animals from Lake Erie Metro Park, kids' activities, and then educational informational presentations for adults, including a presentation on the McLeod Steel site and what's happening there, which will include a talk about the Conservancy's position and how everyone on Groseal should be interested and involved in that, as well as how to raise monarch butterflies and other things of interest. So,
I'm sure you're aware that the demolition has started on the site.
right. In fact, one of our board members, has been doing some asbestos monitoring on West River to kind of keep an eye on what's coming over from that site. So far, there hasn't been anything that's been measurable and out of compliance, but we're keeping an eye on that.
Okay, before we get in with the main meeting, I'd like to make an announcement that John Meyer has agreed to accept the responsibility of being the recording secretary now that Pat Nielsen has resigned, and I want to publicly thank John for his willingness to come forward. We'll try to make it as easy as we can on you, John, if possible. And welcome aboard, and thank you for taking care of this for me. We really appreciate it.
Everybody knows that starting off with an apology or an excuse is the worst thing a person can possibly do. But I know how valuable Pat has been to this committee over the years, and I want to warn you, I can take decent minutes, but don't expect me to fill the other many gaps that you will leave.
Okay, thank you very much. Any public comments from the public? If not, we can move right along. The first item, as we've already covered, we have a new member, Dan Jaster, Jastar, and welcome aboard, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate your help and your willingness to volunteer. John, any update on the welcome letter?
We're caught up as of the last meeting, and there is no new list of newcomers at the present time.
Thank you. The nature guide update. Bert, John and myself have had a meeting on the nature guide. Bert, is there any word from the Conservancy on input for the revised nature guide?
Greg Roginski is willing to update the map,
Okay,
and that's not a lengthy process.
okay,
I haven't really done anything on it because I've been out of town and then working on the Conservancy newsletter and the
Okay.
Refuge benefit dinner, which is coming up. So
okay. Could I suggest something? I'm going to be gone all next week. Could we meet sometime in maybe late April? Pick a date that's agreeable for the three of us to go through and maybe tie that up, or is that too soon, Pat?
no, that'll be fine.
Okay, we'll pick a date the last 2 weeks in April. We'll meet at my house, we'll have coffee, and we'll get this thing wrapped up. There is one of the things that we want to do is we want to put the well, we'll discuss it at our little meeting. But what I'd like to do, if possible, is to wrap this thing up so we can get it to the printer by at least the 1st of May, providing we are satisfied with what we have. So we'll try to. I'll call you when I get back from vacation about meeting. Does anybody have a calendar here? What day would be available?
It's a trick. Here we go. Okay, there's your month of April. Oh, did I scooch it up?
That's all right.
No, come
Okay.
here.
How about could we pick a day, the last day of April, the last month of April, or the last week of April, so we can sit down and.
22nd through 26th.
Bert, do you have anything tied up?
The 23rd is good for me.
23rd of April?
Yeah.
Okay. How about, what time would be available? 10 o'clock?
Sure.
Okay, let's meet at my house at 10 o'clock on the 23rd of April to go over where we stand and make any final adjustments and then get it to the printer for a first draft.
At what, noon, did you say?
10.
At 10, oh, fine. That's
Okay.
good, because I was
Yeah.
having,
All right, it's 23rd of April. We've, excuse me, Carl has filled us in on the trail extension. That quote will be formally awarded on April 8th. And the date to physically start working on that will depend on the fact that we have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed as far as the agreement is concerned. So we'll wait for your guidance on that as far as when we can really. I think we can notify the individual after the board approves as far as the formal start date.
Dale Ream will be taking care of that.
Okay. And so we can get him started on working on that trail. And the online trail extension for Manchester Woods, are we in a position where we can prepare a proposal for extending that trail? Or is there some additional items that have to be completed before we can start working on that issue?
I would suggest that we sit down with Township Manager Ream and look at two things in specific. One is the topographical maps he has that will show where we can build a trail that is above mud with any luck. The second thing is I spoke with Peter Kantz from the Conservancy, And part of that woods is a vernal wetlands, which means in the springtime it is one of the unique pieces of wetlands in the state of Michigan. And Mr. Kantz has given me the contact information for the people that have been involved previously with designating or showing that as a rather unique area. And I would like to see that we could talk with them so that we're not building a trail over something that is considered one of the prime examples of a vernal wetlands area in the state of Michigan.
Okay.
So I would suggest the proper place to start would be to have a representative from the successful bidder sit down with members of this commission and with Dale Ream as the township's manager and take a look at what we can do and where we should put the trail. I think it would be a good way of starting.
All right.
Wetland designated on any of our maps?
Not that I'm aware of. It is what's known as a vernal wetland, which means it's wet in the springtime and then dries up the rest of the season. And it is connected, interestingly enough, to a ditch that runs underneath Meridian and then flows into the retention basin when there is apparently too much water back there. But our existing trail, I believe, either goes right through the heart of that wetland area or is very, very close to it. In either case, I think it's prudent to consult with people that know more about that area than we do, and that way we can be good stewards of the open space greenways on Grosse Ile.
How do we get the things? Should we meet with Dale to go over the typographical issues with that proposed trail? Get a proposal, and then at the same time select a vendor, or in other words, a person who's going to put the trail. The length of the trail will determine whether we have to go out for a competitive bid or not.
Correct.
If it's over $5,000, we will have to go out for a competitive bid.
I anticipate with the length of that, that would be very close or even over the $5,000 mark. So another reason to have Dale involved so we can do this as inexpensively as possible.
All we want to do is we want to put an extension either out to Manchester. I think that's basically what we're talking about. Bert, I think you've been involved with this to some degree. Is that basically correct?
Yeah, it's basically correct. I think it's great that Carl spoke with Peter and got a contact to deal with the vernal wetland, because that is an important ecological feature that we should be aware of. And
any meeting that we have concerning this trail, Bert has to be involved with. Okay.
I would say at a minimum, you and Bert, I'd like to be involved, and I think we should probably let the commission as a whole receive notice of that so they can be involved as desired. But certainly would want to have input from here, input from the township manager's office with a
Very
meeting
definitely.
with,
we don't want to do anything that'll come back and bite us, So
I think it's just prudent that we have everybody that has some skin in the game be involved.
great.
If your yard is flooded until late May or early June, does that make it a vernal wetland?
No, what that means is you have waterfront property and Tim O'Donnell's going to be looking for you.
Oh, great.
What's your address, please, John?
You could look it up.
One of the items that came up as a matter of discussion for Manchester Woods was its very name. We kind of arbitrarily named it Manchester Woods because it was relatively close to Manchester. And if my memory serves, when Bert, myself, and John met, I think we kind of agreed we would like to rename that, more appropriately call it the Meridian Woods Open Space, and I'd like to open that up for general discussion.
Isn't that in the minutes from last time?
It may have been, but Bert, what's your thoughts on changing the name?
I think if it's not a lot of hassle, then I think it's a good idea. because it's pretty illogical to call it Manchester Woods.
Okay. And I think that's the reason why the issue came up. It'd be more appropriate to call it Meridian Woods, which we will do when we prepare the new, which we would do if we would prepare the new map. Dan, any comments on that?
I agree with Bert.
Okay.
I mean, it just makes sense.
Okay.
I like the idea, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to run that by both Dale and with Tim O'Donnell and see if there's any reason why they know that we would not be able to just make that change. So we're avoiding
That
any,
change came from after we had extended it, not bought the new property, but it was kind of like say, well, let's call it the Manchester Woods, so that's what we called it. John, any comments from your end about changing the name?
No, I think it's a good idea. I thought we had resolved it at the meeting.
I thought we did too. So you want to? So what you're saying is that we should get Dale involved and see if he has any problems with it, or
Yeah, I just want to see if there's any reason legally or good cause shown that we should continue it. I think it's a great idea. Let's make the change, but I just want to make sure
Okay.
that there's no real good reason or good cause that we should not make the change.
I think I'd like to put this in a form of a motion to recommend that we change the name to Meridian Woods and make that a formal motion by the board. Any second to that?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Discussion real quickly. Do you want to include the Wright Woods on that, as that's known too? So we have
Absolutely. In other words, Wright Woods is now part of is part of that whole property. The entire property would be called the Meridian Woods.
So my understanding then, the motion is to rename the Wright Woods and Manchester Woods Meridian Woods.
Correct. And that would cover the entire area. Okay. Now who's
You need a second on that?
I did the first.
second, John? Who seconded?
Well, I will, but I guess,
Yeah, why don't you? Okay, you
Yeah.
say. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I'll get in touch with Dale this week and see if he, and just run it past him and see if he has any problems with it.
Well, if our audience member looks like she has something to say.
Oh, I like the name Manchester Woods. To me, it sounds a little bit more elegant, but maybe that's just how I'm used to saying it. To me, Meridian Woods just doesn't have the same ring to it. If you're talking about making an extension of a path that comes off Manchester, it seems like it might be logical to just leave the name Manchester Woods, but I mean, it's just.
Okay.
Do you want her up at the microphone?
Come on up to the microphone.
Yeah, come on up. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, it looks like
Right there.
we made an arbitrary decision to call it Manchester initially, and then we started receiving a lot of complaints about it. Why don't you call it why don't you call it Meridian Woods? You know?
Your name and street that you live on, please.
My name is Emily Campbell. I live on Thorpe, and our house backs up to what is now the Manchester Woods area. So I came specifically just to kind of hear, because I noted there were some things about Manchester Woods being discussed. One of them was the name change. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal, but just to me, I like the name Manchester Woods. And if you were talking about making an extension of the path coming off Manchester, it seems somewhat logical to keep the name Manchester Woods. But it's very accessible from Meridian, so I could see the reason for renaming it that way as well.
Based on this input, is there any reconsideration of the motion that we made?
I don't have any reconsideration.
The only thing I would add is that Meridian Woods tends to identify the location better than Manchester because of the school across the street and
True.
all of that. But I'm kind of partial to. They're both good ideas.
Call it Manchester Meridian Woods. All right. I tell you what, we'll get in touch with Dale and we'll bring this issue up to him and have Dale give his final approval on it. Okay?
Thank you for your input.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Okay, let me see. The next item, I don't know, is it on the agenda, is the Dump the Junk program. I think we have decided that we're going to have one Dump the Junk program this year, a proposal, and to have it sometime in May, if we're going to have one, and we need a chairman and co-chairman for that particular activity, if we're going to have one. Discussion?
I'd be willing to co-chair it since I haven't participated in it before, if that would be acceptable to the board.
And we would have, it's proposed that we have it only one day, and that day would be on a Saturday to keep the cost down. People are looking forward to it, and I'm suggesting that we have it in May, the third week in May on a Saturday. Is there any discussion?
What is going to be excluded, Mr. Chairman, from dumping?
Well, just the same as we've always had. We can't have electronics. We can't have any hazardous waste. No liquid paints.
Is the 27th, which is a Monday, would that be the Memorial holiday this year? I'm asking, I don't know.
Yes.
But we should have it before that date. Should we have it, when you're looking at May, let's see.
Third Saturday is the 18th.
Yes.
That, and that's not, we're not interfering with Mother's Day because that's on a Sunday. What's your pleasure on the 18th? And I'll start with Carl. Any problem with the 18th of May?
I'd like to have Mr. Banning let us know if there's any conflict with any of Wayne County's recycling programs for the same day.
Yes, because they include paint and that hazardous
Right.
stuff too, I believe.
Correct. Electronics, hazardous.
Yep.
Right, I'm trying
Even
to,
though we can't, what we can do, if we have it on the same day, we can
For people to it.
refer to people, if they have it, they say, well, we can't accept it, but some other location can accept it. John, what's your thoughts on the 18th?
Fine.
Okay. Bert?
I'm looking it up right now. So, okay, so we've got Saturday, May 11th is at the Henry Ford College on Evergreen Road in Dearborn. Saturday, August 10th at the Westland Shopping Center in Westland. Saturday, October 19th at Wayne County Community College on North Line in Taylor. So if we wanted to push it off until October, then people could drop stuff off with us and then toddle over.
I think the word that I'm getting, the scuttlebutt through Donna Depp at the township is the residents are really looking forward to a dump to junk event this spring.
Okay.
Now, isn't the Rotary doing something this coming weekend with shredding? I thought I saw something.
I don't know.
And you're right, I've had people ask about branches and stuff like that, if they could get rid of it in the spring.
Well, I guess we got two dates, the 11th or the 18th. What date would be acceptable to us?
Give us more time to announce it by being the 18th. What do you think, Bert?
Because the question is whether we think if people bring stuff that we can't accept,
Then what do they do with it? Take it back home? Or?
right? Will people, if we did it on the 11th and they brought stuff to us and we said, you can't take it here, but you can take it to Dearborn,
Okay.
would they do that?
Well, on the 11th?
Right.
Okay, well, let's make it the 11th then.
So community, I'm looking, Community Shred Day on Grosio Connect is October is April 13th.
Okay,
So-
mine's off by a week.
So that's not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. So if we do it on the 11th, that's probably the Saturday before Mother's Day, which, since we're not doing it on Sunday, is probably okay.
So the 11th sounds acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Carl?
Yes.
Okay. Dan?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll go with the 11th. Okay, let's set it with the 11th of May. And I need two chairmen on it. Let me see. Darrell Filarski worked with Pat last time, so if you could work with him,
That'll be fine.
that'll be fine. What I would ask you to do, if you would be so kind, is to get a hold of Donna Deppa and maybe sit down, have a date with her, to sit down with her, and she can give you a real detailed breakout of who does what. There's not much to do. Donna does most of the work in terms of scheduling, so schedule a date with her to sit down and go over with the Dump the Junk program, and we can publish it in the local paper, when we're going to have it. And I think Darrell, when Darrell comes back, he will be informed to work with you on that particular event.
Price you pay for being out of town, right?
You haven't heard. You haven't heard yet. What are your hours on that, Mr. Chairman?
Just to add a note to your subtle comment, Bert, I was appointed chairman because I was late for a meeting.
Yep, yep.
What are your hours on that, Mr. Chairman?
I would say we had, 9 to 5?
That makes sense.
It was 9 to 4 or something. That's
9 to 4? All right, let's make it 9 to 4. And then if,
you just close the gate and then there's still some.
Some residual.
if somebody comes in about 5 to 4, you got a little bit of lead time there, and that avoids another unpleasant situation. Okay. The next item is candidates for a new committee member. We're still short of a committee member. I would like to put that onto a closed door, if we could meet after the public meeting to discuss this, because there's some confidential issues there. So if we could take a couple of minutes after our meeting to just talk about it, I would appreciate it.
Be fun.
The next item is the select a date for the millage proposal. I would like to keep this as an open item on the agenda, because we're reaching a point where we're going to have to go out for a millage proposal for maintenance costs, because at the present time we have about $250,000 left in the maintenance fund, which at the rate we're spending right now will last us maybe another 3 to 4 years. So I would like to at least start the preliminary work with the township board to put a millage proposal on the board, on the on the ballot for approval.
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, to that is if it is a renewal, it will appear on the ballot as a renewal. I believe that's 1/10 of a mil. If it expires, then it is brought on as a new millage. So that is something that we need to be aware of when we set the next request for a millage for the township board.
It certainly is not a renewal, because it hasn't been on the ballot. I mean, on the assessment for at least 6 to 7 years. We let it slide because we had about $600,000 in the account, which would last us for a long time, which it has. But I don't want to get into a panic situation. So let's start thinking about that. And let's try to, by the end of this session, not session, but the end of this fiscal year, by March, have a date set as to when we would like to go out for a millage proposal, okay?
Chairman and Carl, I've got a question for both of you. Is there any way, before we go out looking for a millage proposal, is there any way we could go after additional funding from maybe wildlife, the DNR, Wayne County? I mean, has anybody explored those possibilities before we go after a millage proposal?
The answer to the question, we haven't, no. The possibility that we should.
Would you like me to look into this,
Yes.
Carl? I mean, what do you think? What are,
You've been very involved in BPAC looking for monies for
yes, I have.
that, and I would support your investment of time and energy to see what we can do here. I would also suggest, and I hate to keep piling on, but perhaps starting with Township Manager Ream, and perhaps see if the township's rec director, Kim O'Farrell, may have some involvement there. She may have some ideas or some ability to point you in that direction. And there might be something that Bert may be familiar with the Conservancy and other special areas of natural habitat, which seems to me to be flowing hand in hand with the maintenance that we're talking about. So.
Well, I was just thinking that before we go after the residents, let's explore all possibilities to obtain some funding.
I think it's an excellent idea.
Yeah, at least we should try for it. Okay, before we go into a closed session, are there any other comments? Starting off with my left here, John, anything?
No.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Bert?
I'm all set.
I'd like to know if our audience has anything further.
Can I jump back to the Manchester Woods for a minute?
Sure.
Just because we live, our property is right against that, I would just be curious down the line. I know you have a lot to talk about now since it's a wetland, where a trail might, how close it might come to the properties that are against, butting up against the Manchester Woods, and where the trail would come to off of Manchester Woods. Because I'm hoping it's not like going to go right through my backyard off.
We hadn't considered that, but that's a good idea. I like that. No, the
Not your
trail,
backyard.
the trail is looking like we would connect from Centennial Farm. There's then the lot that the township purchased that connects from Centennial Farm to Manchester Road at near Park Lane.
Yeah. Okay.
And then Park Lane would go in.
Okay.
Traditionally, if you look at the trails that have been laid out in open space greenways, we like to have a buffer zone between residences so that you don't have issues with people knowingly or unknowingly trespass on your property. And it also makes it a better trail experience when you're not in the middle of the neighborhood and close to roads and close to other people's homes and yards and things like that. If you walk the existing trail, and I'm pretty confident that you have since you're so close, you will see that it is set back several hundred feet from the homes that are on the north side of Rucker and goes almost due east before you hit that drainage ditch, and then goes north along that ditch. And again, there's a buffer zone between that and the properties there that are immediately north of that, which would include Thorpe. And it makes basically a circle at that point, a closed loop trail, and you come out, again, far from any other traffic or any other residences or anything like that. So to answer your question, I see the trail going from Centennial Farm to Manchester, Park Lane, and then into the woods again.
Okay, perfect.
So
Just to add to Carl's comments, one of the in the founding documents for the open space program when it comes to trails, one of the things that we stated that we would do is to respect the privacy of adjacent homeowners. Along with that, I think what we will do is, if we propose a trail, before that trail is constructed, we will have if you wish, we can have a forum with you and with other interested residents to see if there's any issues that may arise with the construction of that trail. So I want to commit to you right now that we will not be putting a trail in your backyard.
Thank you.
No, it's not a laughing matter, really. It's a serious issue. Until we have the input from the affected residents. Okay?
Thank you.
One other thing, if I may. You live on Thorpe, so you're aware of the structure that Tim and Kathy Walker have on their property, and that is something that they're very sensitive to, so that there is not trespassing with people coming to play in their yard on the attractive structure there. So when we look at the trail that's connecting Ferry to Gage, we spoke with the homeowners, and the homeowner that sold us the property was very sensitive to having some kind of a green wall, if you will, or a green fence, and that's part of what we're incorporating into that, so that the trail bends around their property.
Okay.
They're to the west, so the trail will veer to the east,
Okay.
and then the property on the east, which is not completely adjacent to the Tittle property, they're going to be a little bit further away from the trail than if we just ran a straight shot. So
Okay,
we're interested in saving as many of the trees that we can, having a trail that works well for everyone, including the neighbors.
Excellent. And I don't know, I think all of the kind of people in the area feel the same way, but we are very interested in getting involved with helping maintain the woods and stuff from how we can. So I think I've emailed people in the past, and I don't know if I'm emailing the wrong people about, if there's anything we can do, since we are so close, to help maintain and keep it the way it should be. So
One of the things that we're constantly vigilant about is any kind of damage or vandalism. So I would suggest if you have an ability to do that, that would be great. You could certainly contact the Groseal Public Safety,
okay.
676-7100. If you have anything that you're observing, we certainly don't want to have this turn into an underage drinking or any other kind of issue there. And we want everybody to be able to enjoy it, including the adjacent property owners. And to that extent, if you're interested in working with that, the Conservancy is an excellent group. They're not necessarily tied to this project, but we have asked that Peter Kantz and the Conservancy get involved with some of our projects that we're looking at, so we have their input. And that's an excellent group. And I think Bert is somebody that's very, very able to give you any information on that you might want.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've talked in the past. Right now it's sort of very vague and unstructured, but having sort of friends of open space, whether it's actually set up or just a amorphous thought process, but particularly with the residents near the open space trails, to be the eyes and ears and reporting on, as Carl said, vandalism or encroachment, and just helping the township police the trails so that they're used properly. And, and when we issue the nature trail guide again, in that guide, there's phone numbers for people to call for, this or that. So that would be great, for you to kind of be part of the Friends of the Manchester Meridian Woods Trail.
Yeah.
And another thing is that a lot of times residents whose property borders open space, they make their own trails to connect from their yards to the
Okay.
trail itself. So, that's not something that we'll do, but if you see it, it'll be just, by deer and people accessing the trail. Yeah, but
Very
thanks for
much.
coming. We don't
Thank
always
you.
have
Thank you.
an audience, so.
One final thing, Mr. Chairman. I received a email from Tony Gray, the Township Ordinance Officer, and we were talking about encroachments.
Yes.
And the encroachment that concerned us alongside the Centennial Farm on the north side has been resolved. It has been removed. The fence is down, and the homeowner has done everything he said he would do. And Tony asked me to convey that to the commission, that that property has been restored, or is in the process of being restored, I can say.
I got that same email, and I was going to mention that, and I'm glad you did, that that issue has been resolved, and resolved as the way it should have been. So that's great. Okay, any other comments? John, anything else? Not from me. Dan?
Nothing.
Bert? Okay. Carl?
Good.
Okay, so we're going to adjourn the meeting, then we go into a closed-door session to discuss candidates. I think we can meet here, can we not? You don't have to, as long as the,
Well, we have to go into a closed and then come back out, so just technically the way it's supposed to be done.
all right. So we're going to a closed session.
I would move to adjourn to a closed session at 7:54.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. We're going to go into a closed session.
And then we'll reopen.